we're finally getting some rain here in Raleigh. We went up, April is historically one of our drier months of the year, but we went through the entire winter dry and then went into April, which is almost always dry. And it was really, really dry. So it's nice. I think we've had rain in 3 consecutive days, which is probably the first time in a very, very long time. It'll come across the middle of the country and just breaks apart over and over and over before it gets here. Not complaining anymore about that though. We're getting some actual rain and we've had a couple thunderstorms, and that rain is just really great for all of these annuals that got put in. I mean, you're watching this, it's probably been about a week and a half since these annuals went in the ground, and they were half this size. And so they're jumping pretty quick. We haven't done any fertilizing on them. They just went into the compost, got planted, they're settling in, and already starting to put on a little bit of color. We'll probably cut that off. We'll probably go through here at least once, and you just kind of go off with their heads and have them concentrate on rooting in a little bit more. And then when they come back out from that, we'll let them flower at that point. The Empress of China dogwood is starting to show some color. You can start to see these little greenish flowers are starting to blow up. We're definitely gonna have less flowers than we've had in the past. This thing has been, in the past, just a solid white wall. But I can see there's far less flowers on it. That's because we had some of them flower in the fall. If you've been following along with the channel, for some reason, this thing decided to bloom in the fall. And I think it used about 1/3 of its flowers then when it did that. It's still gonna be super colorful, and the flowers are small now compared to what they'll be. But we put a bunch of plants in the ground this past week, some unusual things that I'll talk about in just a sec. We went down to Athens, Georgia, and spent a little time with Dr. Durr, and I've got a few photos from that I'll label a couple of plants that were interesting in his garden. And then we're gonna show off some things that are in bloom. We had a subscriber order us a soft touch holly to be a memorial for holly, and it went in this week over next to the vegetable garden. I will tell you, soft touch hollies can be a little temperamental in our gardens if they're not in a place that gets pretty regular moisture. And so we decided to put our soft touch holly over by the vegetable garden because it tends to be a place that we've amended the soil a little more and it stays a little more moist in that area overall. Well, the places I've seen them struggle, or people in the neighborhood will try to put them in, you know, the kind of the worst conditions between their sidewalk and the street and that kind of thing. So I've seen them struggle a little bit in those spaces. But if you pick a spot in your garden, it's a perfect little boxwood shape Japanese holly that's really easy and low maintenance. But again, it needs kind of regular moisture, well drained but moist soil. We did a video over at the Greensboro Arboretum a couple weeks ago showing off some of our favorite plants from that place, and Steph finished up that video talking about poet's laurel, which she's always really liked, and we've never really had covered on the channel all that much, despite the fact that they're in a lot of great garden tours that we do. And we had a lovely couple here in Raleigh see that video and then dig up a piece of theirs and brought it to us, and so we got that in the garden in the back row. That poet's laurel definitely will adapt to dry shade, but when I say something will adapt to dry shade, which that spot we put it in can be a little bit dry, it doesn't mean that you can just pop it in there and not water it at all. It's going to need to transition into that space to be able to compete with the roots from the trees on the back line. Then we put in a small Pittosporum elysioides on the side of the house. That plant can actually get quite big in time, but it's this Pittosporum that has this really strappy foliage and kind of a light yellowish white tubular flower on it. Really nice Pittosporum. It should be grown more in gardens, but it's not. We bought that one, I think, off the rack at the J.C. Ralston Arboretum. But it's a really interesting Pittosporum species. And then we have one that definitely will not stay in the garden permanently. We have a blue Cunninghamia. Cunninghamia is a very large growing conifer, can get 50, 60 feet in height ultimately. But most of the time you see it as a green foliage, with green foliage, but there is a variety called Glauca, and we see it maybe, you know, here or there we'll see this occasional blue one, and it's a giant blue Christmas tree that we can grow here in the south. They're hardy in, I think, zone 6 to 9, something like that. I will tell you that Cunninghamia can kind of colonize a bit in time, so you'll see them a lot of times as either single species, you know, single trunked Christmas tree shaped trees where people have taken care of cutting out the suckers that can come, or they can kind of colonize in a space and come up from seed potentially in those spaces. But the blue Cunninghamia is amazing. We can leave this in the garden for 5 or 6 years and it only get, you know, just a few feet tall. And it will end up with a single trunk. The one we have is kind of laying flat at this point, but it'll end up with a single, we'll train a single trunk up, and then we may move it to another garden at the point that it's too big for this garden. And then we got a really interesting one that's probably not hardy in the garden here, the Bermuda juniper. We got this down in Florida. This is a juniper that's of course called Bermuda cedar, because every juniper, you know, the way you make something more valuable is you call it a cedar. This is an endangered tree that's an endemic, it is from Bermuda, and it was basically the entire island was covered in this tree at one point, and of course it's endangered in the wild, but people still are able to propagate them and enjoy them in southern areas. Occasionally I'll see this thing's hardy in zone 8 to 10, but I think it's really only hardy into zone 9, so we'll probably pop it out of the ground and keep it through the winter time. It's just an interesting plant to have and to be able to talk about, but it's not one that we could probably leave in the garden. It does become a very large tree like juniper. And we put in a hart's tongue fern. We've got a space back there in the back corner where it stays moist, but we didn't have any real shade there during the summertime, and now things have gotten bigger and we're able to put a few ferns into a couple spots that had the moisture but didn't have the shade. So that's something exciting, that we can start to add some ferns back there. Then we have this gold osmanthus that we put in, aurea. This gold, you know, gold colored foliage. I don't know how many osmanthus we now have in the garden, but we've put in 2 variegated ones this season, a really interesting round leafed one, and several others. So we have quite the osmanthus collection going out here now, and that gold one should be super showy. And then we put in this really cool dwarf snowbell that only gets about 4 or 5 feet in 10 years. So where we think about Japanese snowbells, and there'll be a little bit of footage of a couple snowbells from the Durr garden. You know, typically we're talking about trees that get, you know, 15, 20, 25 feet in height ultimately. We got this one from Camellia Forest. They were actually at the Ralston Blooms sale last weekend, and really excited for this one because this one kind of fits our garden. We don't really have any more room for anything that's going to get 20, 25 feet tall necessarily. So this little dwarf snowbell is perfect. It has all the features of a snowbell, but only 4 or 5 feet in height. back to the home garden here, the alliums are in full glory right this second. We have 3 or 4 spots of them now in the garden. And I'll tell you, when we have the open garden event, which is in June, these are just as decorative. So they won't have the purple color in them, but it looks like a ball. It still has this ball look to it. Everybody wanted to know what they were. Like, that's still the flower, but it's not. It's just the structure that's left after the flowers finish. One thing I really love about growing alliums in the garden is the foliage dies back while the flowers are still up. And so by the time they're done, they're done. Okay, so you have the foliage come up first and then the flowers, but the foliage starts to die back as the flowers come into full flower. Whereas the others, you know, come up, bloom, and then the foliage sticks around for so long afterwards. So I do like that about them. We have the potential to have a winter that's not cold enough for them to come back very well, and then it starts to decline. But we've been lucky. This past winter was good enough that all the ones we had from the year before came back really well, and then that little group right there that you're seeing are new. Another thing, the next video you'll see is all of our containers. We've planted, brought all the containers onto the patio back here and got them planted. So we'll go through the plants that are in containers for this season. We went, last year it was almost all shrubs. This year it's a few more tropical-y things that may or may not come back, but we'll go through some of those things. You can see the pruning that we need to do right now, though, with the rain. It's literally raining while we're filming this right now. But you can see the things being pulled over. That's a pretty good indicator that you need to be pruning on something. A minor amount of rain won't break it, but you can see that it could be broken. If you added a storm to that water weight right now, it has the potential to break apart plants. And so if you're seeing a plant really spread apart, start weeping when it's got a little bit of water on it, that's an indicator that ice would destroy it potentially, or if a combination of wind and rain event, you know, could destroy it. It needs some weight taken off of it. I really like this area. Back here, we've put in a dwarf Japanese maple that went in a video a week or 2 ago. Put in a colocacia, that Pharaoh's Mask colocacia. It's under the loropetalum right this minute, but the loropetalum will get some work done to it this week. This week has got to be pruning week out here. Things that have woken up, some of them are now gone beyond waking up and putting on massive amounts of new growth, and that's going to need to be cut back just a little bit, just on a few things. It's not much. I mean, it might take me a couple days to cut it back and then another day to pile it together somewhere and clean it up. The variegated Nandina, so this is like firepower Nandina, but it's a variegated version of it. Really cool plant. In the wintertime, it was solid red out here, especially since we had some actual winter. And now that it's flushing out from that, it has that variegation in the foliage, so that kind of makes it unique. What's this hosta called, Steph? Dancing Queen. I'll forget the name of this hosta every single time, but it's beautiful. See the giant leaves on that thing, and it's tucked up under this, tucked up under the hydrangea. And it really, you know, with that rock in front of it, really like that. That's a fantastic hosta. It's got a little bit of moisture from underneath that rock. Our hosta are, with some exceptions, probably a little less vigorous than they would be in a slightly more moist environment. And so a lot of times, I'm telling you, our Aprils can be a little bit dry here, you know, so they're coming out of the ground, you know, without necessarily the moisture that they want. But that one is tucked up in a little spot where it's happy every time it comes out of the ground. Of course, it'll bloom a little bit later in the summer. And I'm going to continue to say that I think Deer Dolores is the best remontant or repeat blooming hydrangea on the market. I don't think that there is a better one than this. And I've tried a bunch of them over the years. This is the most reliable hydrangea. We're just getting started with these inflorescences. They'll get bigger and bluer as time goes on. Mine aren't really super dark blue. I could add some aluminum sulfate and make them darker blue, but ours will end up probably in that, about in that shade of blue right there by the time it's fully colored up. And we'll show it again soon as that whole inflorescence covers up and they get full sized. This one has so many on it that if I didn't water it here in the next couple weeks, or it wasn't getting rain, they may end up a little undersized. You know, when you get this volume of flowers that you can see coming on something, if that thing went through some sort of dry period, they could end up slightly stunted. But I think this thing will end up solid blue, and then it repeat blooms on new wood from this year as well. So again, I think as far, you know, in my observation, I don't think that there's a better truly remontant repeat blooming, blooms on old wood, blooms on new wood, hydrangea macrophylla on the market. You know, I can't imagine one is better than that one. If you can find it in you know, that hydrangea macrophylla world is a very crowded world of maybe thousands of named ones over time, and so it's kind of hard to find table space sometimes for plants. But I think this one is for me risen to the top of the best of them, because if we get a winter that was cold enough to kill this thing back, it would still flower. Because it blooms on that new wood as well, but it was virtually flower to flower. So there you go. There's some of the things, a few things that are looking pretty good. All the annuals have gone in. Those of you coming to the open garden, by then this place, there won't be any soil or mulch to see. By that point, everything will have been filled in and it'll be full colored up here. Some of these things, the alliums will still look great, weirdly, you know, June 20th. The hydrangea will be past peak, but there'll be other things that will come on and take its place. That's the thing about this garden is we can turn this camera on once a week and show you a whole new group of things that are flowering. That's been the intent and the plan for this this garden all along. So let us know down below what's looking good in your garden here at the beginning of May as we're filming this. And thank you guys for watching.